Hi, I'm Eric Ostro, host of Live at the Lortel. For Season 3, we are focusing on the intersection of arts and advocacy. So many off-Broadway artists give back to their communities. This season, we are giving them the opportunity to speak about how and why they chose the causes they devote themselves to, and how those causes help make them the people and artists they are today. Good evening, everybody. Welcome to Live at the Lortel. My name is Eric Ostro. I want to get to our show as quickly as possible because we have a lot to talk about. We have a very special guest this evening. Let me bring my co-host on, Joy DiMichele. Joy.
Hello, Eric. How are
Hi,
you?
Joy. I'm really good. I'm really excited.
I know you are.
I spent the past few days doing some Instagram stuff and looking at some great pictures of our guest. But I'm going to give
You
a
did
little
some
intro to our guest before
stuff?
she comes on.
You
Um,
did
J-
Instagram stuff, or did you do Instagram stalking?
yes. Oh, I did that too. Jessica Vosk is a celebrated singer and actress known for stirring roles on the musical theater and concert stage. Vosk will make her Carnegie Hall debut in November of 2021 in a solo show titled My Golden Age, a week from today. Other upcoming concert debuts include London's Cadogan Hall in 2022. Before the infamous shutdown, she starred as the narrator in the 50th anniversary of Joseph and the Amazing Technicolor Dreamcoat at Lincoln Center. She also created the role of Aunt Val in the world premiere of Becoming Nancy, directed and choreographed by Jerry Mitchell. Before that, Vosk finished an acclaimed run as Elphaba in Wicked on Broadway, having played the role for 2 years. Vosk starred in New York City Broadway, having played the role for 2 years. Vosk starred in New York City Ballet, Jerome Robbins' tribute Something to Dance About, directed by Warren Carlyle, and recreated the role of Fru Massera in the most recent production of the revival of Fiddler on the Roof. Other broad credits include Finding Neverland and The Bridges of Madison County. She starred as Anita in West Side Story with the San Francisco Symphony. The recording of the concert was nominated for a Grammy. Her debut album, Billboard charting solo, Wild and Free, was released in 2018 and was followed by 2020's A Very Cocoa Christmas. Ladies and gentlemen, without further ado, please welcome our incredible guest, Jessica Vosk.
Hi.
Hi.
Um,
Welcome.
Yes. Thank you so much, Eric. Thank you for having me. I'm thrilled to be here. That was a long-winded. I'm sorry you had to say all of that. That was so long.
I kind of wanted to. I'm a very big fan. I've been watching your career for a long time. It's an incredible story of
Thank
how you got
you.
from A to where you are now. But we pretty much always ask our guests, how are you? How are you doing? We've had 18 months of what's been going on in the world. A lot of things. Where were you when, the pandemic hit? Were you working on something or?
I was. It's so interesting to think about where we were when the pandemic hit, because now it's this historical thing, I think, that we look back on and say, oh, wow, I happened to be doing this when Broadway shut down. And so what I was doing is I was working on another reading pre-Broadway of Becoming Nancy, with Jerry Mitchell and with our Broadway producers, and we were in the room sort of cleaning things up and cutting things and putting new things together, and we were going to put the reading on for potential investors, the investors who were already involved. And that reading was on the 13th of March. And so we got sort of the orders that we couldn't have anybody in the room because there was this thing going around, and they thought, they were going to shut Broadway down for 2 weeks. And so everybody's in and out of the room because we have, Broadway producers on the phone figuring out what the Broadway League is going to do. And then they said, okay, yeah, guys, Broadway shutting down today. I guess we'll see you in 2 weeks. And now it's 2021. So it was wild. I mean, I remember leaving that day going, this is traumatic. but we didn't know what it was yet. And now, even though, it's many, many months after, I still feel like the information is new and we get new information all the time, which has led to, just the what do we do kind of thing. And it's all happening in real time. So I consider myself very lucky to be here and still doing what it is that I love,
Yeah.
So what happens
Very
when
lucky.
something like that happens? Did they just put a pin in it, or do they just dissolve it?
Gosh, I hope it's not dissolved. I hope that there's a nice little pin stuck in there, because the musical Becoming Nancy it's an original work. It's based on a book. It's a true story. Of something that I know Jerry Mitchell really believes in, which is the story of a young, kid in London in the late 70s, being being gay and being allowed to say that he's gay, and knowing that in the late 70s it was illegal to actually, say I'm gay. And it follows his journey and his life with his family, and and it was such a cool thing to be able to originate something. And I hope that there is a world in which, as Broadway continues to reopen and as seasons keep coming and going, where they can bring this original musical in, which is kind of like the little engine that could, with such a beautiful message for, hope and the fact that you matter and it's okay to be who it is that you are. So I'm like, oh, let it be a real nice safety pin in there, and let them undo it. And maybe we can, my fingers are crossed. Jerry knows.
Yeah. Ours are too. We're gonna do something different tonight. I think we're gonna start talking about a little bit of your activism first. And I know you're involved with a couple of foundations. One is FAIR's food allergy. I know you suffer from some food allergies, and the other I know that you were involved with, which I as well, with Kelly and Martha Plimpton, is A is 4. So I would
Yep.
love for you to talk a little bit about the what we're doing this season with the intersection between arts and your voice as an activist. I'd love for you to talk a little bit about that.
Yeah, I think I actually love the fact that you, on this podcast, decided to talk about activism and the intersection of activism and artists and actors, because this past year and a half, I think, has been integral to people knowing that you should not feel afraid to be an activist, especially for those who are afraid to use their voice, or those who don't feel like they're being heard, or if they need somebody to stand up for them. And maybe it's something that I learned while playing a green girl on stage who was bullied all the time, but I'm very, very much an activist for many different things. But I grew up. I'm a child. I'm 38 years old. God bless. And I'm a child of the 80s, where nobody actually had allergies in a classroom yet. So when I was in kindergarten and I learned that I had a food allergy to peanuts and to sesame seeds, but mostly peanuts, that was a death kind of throat close anaphylaxis, end of story allergy. Nobody in the classroom had it. There was no such thing as an EpiPen in the classroom. There was no signage that said you can't bring a peanut butter and jelly sandwich. And while it seems so silly and so almost embarrassing, I grew up with this like embarrassment of, if I have to tell somebody that I'm allergic to something, gosh, that just others me in this really terrible way. And I can't have a random cookie that somebody made, or a candy bar that somebody passes me. Believe me, I've tried it and I wound up in the hospital. So as I got older and realized how embarrassed I was, then I started to do the thing I loved the most, which was getting to sing and to be in shows and to work with adults who could tell me, gosh, you can speak up. It's okay to let people know, because you have to keep yourself safe. And so when I started to work with allergy organizations, and people would come and ask me to speak at events, or to help educate younger people and let them know that it's okay to step out and be loud and let people know, if they go to a restaurant, for example, you know what, guess what? I cannot have something that touches something that might have nuts. And it might seem so awful and silly to you, server or waitress or chef, but to me, I would have to take an ambulance out of here. And that really stinks. And a lot of kids, believe it or not, I mean, in the hundreds, have written me and gotten in touch and asked, I'm so scared to pursue a career in the arts because if I have to travel and go on tour, how do I know what's safe? Or if I have to travel and I'm on an airplane, how do I know, how can I tell them that I really have a terrible allergy without feeling like I'm going to be, looked at differently? And it all seems, I always say it's so hard when you're the person living with it. But as much as I've been able to hopefully help people, especially young kids who are going through it now, and it's much more prevalent now. Now you see the classrooms and the, no nuts, no, peanut butter and jelly sandwich, none of that stuff, because there are so many developments of allergies for some reason. But I've also learned a lot too. Like if I got in on an airplane, I went to go speak at a convention once and I was like, well, I got on the airplane and I smelled nuts and my throat was closing up. And the doctor was like, actually, that's in your head. Your throat is not going to close up. But when you smell it, you automatically think I'm allergic to this thing. So I'm now panicking. So I learned a lot of things too that hopefully I can impart to people who ask me a lot of questions and say, or parents who write to me and say, oh, my 15-year-old read this article that you did for an allergy publication, trade magazine, and it made them feel so much better about auditioning for the community play,
Yeah, you mentioned that, it was non-existent when you were younger, wasn't acknowledged. And then there was a bit of shame. And then you found your voice. And around what age did you find your voice to say, okay, I'm no longer ashamed of having these allergies?
Isn't that wild? It's in my 20s.
Hmm.
Isn't that wild? I mean, I haven't even really thought about that, but I remember being in high school and somebody offered me, one of the cool kids was like, here, have a piece of the chocolate bar. And I was like, okay, had an absolute reaction during the school day. And I didn't say anything to anyone. Didn't say anything until I got home and I was so ill that my mom had to drive me to the hospital. But I just remember not wanting to look stupid or, and as a kid, I can look back on it now, elder Jessica, and say, oh my God, your safety was the most important thing. You should have done something. But gosh, when you're a kid in those moments, there is nothing more important than what do people think of me, or how does this make me look afterwards? And, but now I see it, quite differently. And I hope that the resources that are out there now for kids empower them more to feel not so alone in the fact that they might have a life-threatening allergy that requires them to carry an EpiPen. I mean, now every show I go to, I have to give them one. Just, God forbid I forget
the stage manager.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
And even I was reading a lot about your work this week. And even if you're leading man or someone on stage, you have to kiss Fiero or be so close with someone. If someone had peanuts or sesame seeds, that could cause something.
Oh, it has.
in you.
It's happened. Yeah. Oh yeah. I've had I've given somebody even a kiss on the cheek or something, and it's like Hive Express. And I everybody has varying severity when it comes to different allergies. A lot of people have shellfish allergies. A lot of people share my peanut and sesame allergy. But it varies. And as people who have these allergies might know, they're lesser when you first start to develop them. And as you react more, your body has less and less tolerance for it. So, your histamines are not working in the right way anyway. But even, if I were to have a nut, when I was 15 and then again at 20, my reaction would be much more severe at 20. So it's really scary. And I still to this day, I mean, I'm very vocal about it. I even potential guys that I date, I'm not kidding you. I'm like, hey, Bill, I just want you to know that, that we can't have Thai food, Bill. And if you want to get some Thai, it can't happen. And I'm going to let you know that you're not going to be able to just get some trail mix and then give me a kiss on the mouth. So we're going to have to call it quits, Bill. And I mean, 9 times out of 10, the guys are like, okay, so I won't eat nuts. But I do think about that. It's something that I actively think about all the time.
Right. And it even goes deeper, like if a knife had touched a nut.
Oh, yeah.
Right. I mean,
Oh, yeah.
it's so. And what about A is for?
Oh, gosh. I love, okay, one of my biggest sort of vocal in my life necessities is for women to feel empowered and for women to feel like they have a voice in every sense of the word. And so Martha Plimpton and I, Martha, who is one of the founders of A is For, we met doing company at the New York Philharmonic. And we became really fast friends. And years later, I knew that she had been such an advocate for women's health and for, being pro-choice and, just for women having a seat at the table, in every facet. So when she started the organization, I remember talking to her about how passionate she was about a woman's right to choose and how open and honest she was about her journey, and all of the things that she has been through and having to make her own choices, and that they were nothing but her own choices. And that led me to becoming more of an advocate in the world of Planned Parenthood and more of an advocate in watching, Martha would do these fantastic documentaries about women in other countries who would have to make sure that they were in open water to make sure that they had the right to choose what they did to their body so that no one could come and tell them what to do with their body. It's amazing to me in 2021 that we still, as women, have to worry about this. I mean, this is incredibly ridiculous to me that we have to even have the conversation that that a woman should be completely, utterly, 100% in control of what she does with her body.
Right. And we don't have autonomy over our own bodies. It's crazy right now.
It is, and you can, the hypocrisy, in my opinion, of let us take, for example, somebody who doesn't want to get vaccinated and use the, term, well, it's my body. But that same person could be very, very pro-life, which to me is just, the hypocrisy of it all in a nutshell. So, I will always be an advocate, especially for women who feel like they cannot say anything or speak up for themselves, or if somebody needs help, or if somebody needs a hand to hold. I would be there 24/7. It's something I admire about Martha. It's something I admire about Kelly. It's something they work so hard to make sure that women have access to safe abortions, that women have access to all healthcare, that women have access to free healthcare if they need it. And they have worked tirelessly to make that happen. And I have the utmost respect for them. And I do whatever it is that I can to make sure that I can support them.
Yeah,
I want to back
I do
up for
too.
1 second and then bring it up to this as well.
Yeah.
So you talked about foodallergy.org. You talked about the awareness. What do they go into schools? Like, what do they do? And then how can a person benefit? If you have a child who has an allergy, how can they benefit and take advantage of what you guys provide? And the same with this organization too that you're speaking of.
So there are a ton of resources. I mean, there's a lot more paperwork than one would even think of. And there's a lot of, for example, interviews that I've done that wind up in like trade magazines, or if you type in, Jessica Vosk or Elphaba, there are allergy articles that will come up that are like, at the top of a Google search that I had no idea about. And a lot of these organizations do conferences all the time. It is incredible to me how often children succumb to food allergies, or adults succumb to food allergies, or there's the Cleveland Clinic, I should say. I went out and I did a talk for a family who had lost a child of theirs due to a food allergy, and one of the a few of the doctors that headed up the Cleveland Clinic, which is a huge organization specifically for people with allergies. At least they have a branch that has something for people with allergies. They go through such huge educational strides to have people understand, or kids understand, what are the words that I should be saying, if I meet somebody, if I'm traveling, if I'm not with my parent, if I if I forget something, if I don't have my EpiPen. I mean, they sell, or they, some of them sell, but some of them have kits. And they gave me one that is for you to take on a plane that has Benadryl. It's got, sanitary stuff. It's got masks. It's got everything that you can think of in there for you to feel safe and for you to clean the area. I mean, most of it is about education, honestly, and stuff I wouldn't have known as a kid. So, and now, again, something that I didn't have when I was a kid, because my parents were like, lick this spoon of peanut butter and see what happens. Now, they're hello. And here I am today.
Jersey.
Jersey. Yeah. So, but they have, introductions now to food allergies that parents, and if you go to foodallergy.org, or if you go to FAIR, or if you at really any allergy organization, you'll see that, a lot of, babies are tested, and then they're sort of like introduced very, very in small doses to whatever, the allergen could be. So small doses of like peanut powder, or, people are sort of reversing allergies on young kids who started out with allergies, and then slowly, by introducing it into their bodies safely through something like a clinic, or parents going to an allergist, where they can have less of a reaction and become immune to it. I have sadly passed that point, but that's one of the things that I think is incredible as well. As scary as that sounds, I think probably for parents and young kids, hopefully it's a stride in the right direction for education on what it is to have allergies. I mean, I remember still waitresses, I remember a waiter coming up to me once, and I said, I can't have the sesame seed bun. And he said, well, just wipe the seeds off. I just remember being like, I wanted to, if there was something that I knew at the time, like, please go to foodallergies.org and read this article. Like, you just, I hope that helped. I hope that answered that question a little bit.
Well, what about how can people be involved with A is For? I mean, I know that, I give, and I, do as much as I can in terms of going to the benefits and trying to help raise money, and reaching out to Kelly, who I've known for a long time, and Martha, and just, trying to get the word out. But for young people who want to open their mouths and want to help see the world change, especially what's going on in Texas right now, that these people have to get in a car and drive hours. They don't have the money for the gas. They hardly have the money for the doctor, to do what they have to do for themselves. I mean, I can't believe that we're, in 2021, about to hit 22, in the middle of the pandemic, and this is what's happening in our country. It's just one more thing on top of something else. I just can't believe it.
Yeah, I do find it to be a bit unfathomable, as as a woman who considers herself very loud, and I will always, speak up for what it is that I believe in. I cannot, when I look at Texas, and I've enjoyed Texas, but when I look at this, when I look at this law, or when I look at all of the legislation, or, these men who have decided to say, well, this is what is okay, and this is what isn't okay, and women must listen to us. It makes absolutely no sense. And it's why organizations like A is For have been created. And yes, every year I participate in their huge fundraiser, which is they take a lot of, Broadway or TV and film people, and they come and they try and raise as much money as possible. We even did it during the pandemic to assure that women who need financial help, a little bit of aid, any type of stability. If somebody needs a partner to go into a clinic with, if somebody needs information of where to go that is a safe option, that's the stuff that A is for does. And what I will say is, over the years with A is for, the thing that has helped out so much, and it can be a blessing or a curse, is social media. The social media of it all is helpful, especially when it comes to getting the word out, when it comes to signing certain bills, when it comes to speaking to certain senators, legislators, congresspeople, calling local congresspeople. A is for always has links. They work, again, like I said, tirelessly to make sure that all the information is up to date when you visit their Instagram or if you go on their Twitter. They have incredibly awesome merch. I mean, everything goes to the fact that you are helping women have a choice in what it is that they decide to do with their body. Again, I find it incredible that we even have to go to these lengths to make sure, to ensure that women have a safe space. But I am so happy that A is for exists, because I've watched them for years just pound the pavement and knock on doors and ask friends for help. And it's grown every single time. I mean, it can, and that's where young people, thank God, I'm always like, Gen Z is going to save us, y'all, where they can hit the social media pavement, as it were, and tag A is for, or look at all of the articles and research that they have on their website, aisfor.org, and educate themselves on stuff that you may not have known. I mean, I have gotten so much information from them that I had no idea even existed when I decided that I would be a warrior for women's rights. And I get new information all the time. I mean, everything's constantly changing, usually not in our favor as women, but at least people should know, male or female, however you identify, that you have a voice in the matter. And it doesn't, and if you think you don't, that's when I challenge somebody to say, all right, well then say something and see what happens. Because sometimes you think that you might have the quietest little voice and it's not going to make a difference, but I firmly believe that it does, no matter what. I really do.
We have some questions from the audience, and the first question comes from Marissa Brown, which takes us back actually to your beginnings of working in finance.
Oh, yes.
Yes, that is a popular story when you Google Jessica Vosk. So when you worked in finance, when did you know that you needed to stop doing that and follow your passion? And how freaking scary was that?
I appreciate the use of frickin' as a New Jersey resident. That's number one. Number two, thank you for that question. I honestly have to say that I knew that it was time to go when I started to get panic attacks and anxiety, and I had never had them before. And I think
Talk about what that was, like
Sure.
how it manifested physically.
Yeah, it did. I mean, I think that stress, people say, oh, stress kills, it's a silent killer. It does. It does. I am here to tell you, when you're not doing what you love, or when you're feeling stuck, or you feel like you just can't make your way out or claw your way out of your current situation. For me, I was at a really great job doing what it is that I was very good at, but I didn't love it. And so I was on European time zones, but I was also on Pacific time zones with clients. I was all over the place, not sleeping very well, taking, clients and reporters out to lunch and dinner at all hours. And it would manifest itself in me where I would get shaky and my palms would sweat and I would get lightheaded and my heart would race. And I had no idea what that was. And I thought I was dying. I mean, when you ask somebody, what does a panic attack feel like? You're like, well, I could die at any moment because I don't feel like I'm in my body. And that's what it was.
Is it heart palpitations? Is it, do you
Oh,
feel like
yeah.
you're going to faint?
You feel it all. I mean, I would go into pitch meetings with clients, which is so much like, if you think about it, walking into an audition room in front of a random group of creatives. But I would do that in a finance setting in front of, CEOs and CFOs and the rest of my team, and my knees would buckle. And it was just sort of completely alarming to me because I'd never had that happen to me before. And it was so scary, because then you think, well, do I need to go to a hospital or something? Or am I making too much of it? Do I need to breathe? I can't breathe. It would happen so often. And then I just remember somehow correlating the fact that I was anxious all the time and panicky, but I also refused to do anything with art. So I refused to see theater, I refused to see concerts or shows or listen to albums I loved or people I was huge fans of at the time. If people asked me to go see a show, I would say no. And then I think that was the universe's way of saying, SOS.
So you absolutely did not. I mean, you cut all theater and art and everything out of your life. So you just basically were. What were you doing? Marketing?
I was doing investor relations.
Which is some marketing and
it's number crunching. It's working, in certain very niche fields in
working with
high
maintenance clients and
sure,
etc.
Yeah, I mean, expectations are high. It's the kind of thing where I look back at it now, and I'm so glad that I had the business experience, because it is, after all, show business. So I'm so happy that I had the time there, and I learned a lot about what business is and what marketing is and branding and PR and all that kind of stuff when it comes to, Fortune 500 companies and keeping, them afloat. But it really did take a toll for probably the last year and a half that I was there. And I couldn't quite figure it out until it hit me like a ton of bricks. And there's kind of nothing scarier than feeling like you need to leave a really, really cushy situation to go to, concrete and to have to figure all of that out by yourself.
I'm so glad you made that segue from business into show business. For all the young people that are out there listening, what do you feel as though are your maybe top 3 takeaways from having been in the business world that you've been able to apply to your artistry?
Oh, I love that question so much. How to properly brand yourself, and what I mean by that is, a lot of times you don't sit in a room when you're learning what it is to sing or act or dance or take a voice and speech class, learn what it is to use all the tools at your disposal, meaning things like social media or certain websites or networking. Which rooms should you walk into? What people should I speak to? And how should I do that properly so that it feels authentic and not like I'm walking into a room asking somebody for a job? Part of it for me was learning. After I left that business world, I watched CEOs of companies. I watched the CEO of my company and the CFO, and I watched what human resources did. And I watched how people handled themselves in a marketing sense and an advertising sense. And then I realized that as an actor or as a musician or as, fill in the blank in the world of show business, that you have to encompass all of those things. You are the one person shop for all of that. It's like when you go and do a show, and the theater happens to have a costume department and a wig department and a marketing department all in the same building. That's what Jessica Vosk is, and that's what whoever you are listening, that's who you are. And so there's a part of especially, being a woman, where you can feel like people are putting you into a certain box, or you should fit into the ingenue and that means this, or you're a character actor and that means this. But you really do get to choose your journey by saying, I'm the boss. And as you go through your career, you'll find that the more shows that you do, the more people you meet, you'll get agents and managers and all that kind of stuff. But I still consider, even though I'm giving a certain percentage, I'm still 100% the person who has to be the CEO of this brand.
Right.
And I think that that's a lot of the business sense that I took with me, and I'm so happy in retrospect. Like, I wouldn't have done any of it differently. I know that I went through such weird stress and panic, anxiety, but because of what I learned, I think it made me so much smarter and probably better for where I am right now had I not gone through that at all.
I love that you say that you're the CEO of your own brand and your own company. I mean, you're an artist. You're the CEO of your own artistry.
Yes.
And it depends on you
Yeah.
and how you walk into a room and who you meet and the people you get to know in order to be able to walk into the room.
Yeah, and I
So-
feel like you find that rooms are smaller the more you go on, right? You find that you'll see the same people. Either you're auditioning with them and they're your competition, but in reality, they're your peers. And when you're younger, you think I'm in competition with everybody. And then when you start seeing all of your friends over and over again, you realize I'm not in competition with anybody. I'm in competition with myself. I'm the one that has to walk into the room and give the best version. And guess what? It might not be what somebody's looking for, but in 3 months when they are looking for this other thing, they might call me based on how cool I was in the room and how authentic I was in the room. And so sometimes I if I'm talking to kids who are really nervous, especially during a pandemic when they couldn't graduate or couldn't go to school in person and they have to start doing auditions in person now and they're so nervous and freaked out. The thing I think separates us when we need it is that if you are really just who you are and authentically yourself, nobody can tell you otherwise. And if you can leave a room knowing that, whatever type of artist you are, you've already won. You'll hear no. I hear no all the time. Uh, it is what it is, and you'll hear a yes. But if you're authentic through all the no's, when you get to the yes, oh man, it feels so sweet.
Yeah, I bet.
I think it's important for young people or people out there to know that no is just no, not right now. It's not no forever. It's just not right now.
Yes. Yes.
In terms of connecting the dots. So because somebody listening will say, okay, she was in business and then she went to Broadway. So, okay, I can do that too. So can we talk about how your experience with your cattle calls and your working at, I think you did open mics at different. Yeah.
Oh yeah. Yeah. When I brought up the networking thing, it's like automatically I always think of open calls and open mics because when you go, they were so nerve-wracking for me to go to Birdland on a Monday night after working all day in the corporate world and then like fingers crossed hoping that I would get called to do an open mic night at Birdland just to sing My Funny Valentine or something. And you do it enough times and somebody happens to be there who can recommend you for a job. And that's kind of what happened to me. I was at an open mic night and somebody recommended me to a musical director and they said, "Hey kid, I heard you got a good voice. Would you be interested in this?" And that's kind of how what I mean by networking is I certainly know that I've probably made mistakes and been over eager and if you're looking for somebody or I can do XYZ, and that never usually works because in New York people are like sharks, they smell it. So and the same thing for open calls. I went to so many open calls, and for those of you out there who think that they aren't worth anything, I promise you are wrong. You can go to 100 open calls. You might hear nothing, but you will be remembered by the right person. And all it takes is one person to remember you. And I went to open calls for agents when they had like, come to the equity building and audition for these agents. And I mean, I did it all, y'all. And I remember the reason that I got a call for my Broadway debut, which was the Bridges of Madison County, is because I went to an open call for Spider-Man and they kept my headshot. And that's that's all it was. I mean, I want to say that it's so much more simple or so much more complex, but the simplicity of it is, I remember walking in for Spider-Man and hours and hours and hours and hours, but I had a really good conversation with one of the casting people, and I didn't go further with the show, but the conversation made a mark, and they brought me in for the Bridges of Madison County. And I think a lot of, when you talk about the cattle calls and all that kind of stuff, you still learn a lot about business, and you learn a lot about yourself, because you walk into a room and the first thing I tell people is, why do you think you see a lot of creatives working with the same people all the time? Because they like them.
Yeah.
I mean, they might, I might not be the best singer in the room, but my attitude is what could win me the part over somebody who's just not nice. And
they want to work with you. They want to spend time with you.
There really is something to say about kindness. And when I talk to kids about, you're going into an audition, you better treat the monitor as nice as you treat the director in the room, because you bet the monitor might be getting lunch for the director, but the director's asking them how nice you were outside. Guaranteed. I've watched it. I've watched it happen.
And the monitor will not always be the monitor.
That is correct. That is exactly right. And you just, it's that kind of thought process where, when you go in holier than thou, or thinking, I'm better than, or I got this thing, or, don't do that, because there is something to be said for somebody who's as kind to the janitor as they are to the choreographer who is in the room responsible for signing that contract saying you got the show.
Yeah.
Because they will ask people who are working in that building if you were kind to them or not. And I'm such a proponent of saying, make sure that you are as kind when you walk in that building through those, doors onto that elevator as you are when you walk in the room.
Okay, Jessica, I need a visual.
Oh, go ahead,
okay.
So you talked about brand. You learned branding from business. And
yes.
Then you go and do your open mics. So did you bring in a whole, were you done up when you went, or did you just go in with your jeans and shirt on? Or did you?
No, I was done up. I remember going to Birdland for open mic night, and I had asked one of my superiors at my corporate job at the time, hey, could I hang at your place in between, because I know work ends at 6 and open mic doesn't start until 10, and I'm probably going to get there at 9. But, and I've, of course, as many may know, I shopped at Ann Taylor Loft for all of my suits. So I went to the Ann Taylor Loft, and I remember getting a black skirt, and then I got a silk pink off the shoulder look, and a necklace at the time, very Jersey. Oh God. A necklace at the time that was a big pearl with a gold hanging thing off the bottom. And I did my hair in a French twist, which is maybe the first or second time I went to Birdland. And I think there's still a picture of me singing on the Birdland stage in that outfit. I felt so cool. I felt very cool. And I just remember I was there with my friend and her 2 little kids. I was helping her, get dinner ready for them in this outfit, and went to Birdland. Fingers, you just put your name on a list and you pray. You're like, Jesus, take the wheel. And he took it, and I got to sing that night, and I felt like $1 million. Now the next day at work, I did not feel like $1 million.
Yeah, I bet.
But
So I have a couple questions from the audience, and we're going to make them a quick round, if that's okay, because we have a large audience, and I want to get to some Wicked stuff, and I want to get to my childhood dream of playing for Marissa, which you got to play. So I'm the Jewish boy from Long Island who wanted to play for Marissa, so we got to get to that.
We must.
Yes. Question from Casey Keenan. I'm an aspiring performer and am having a hard time getting back out there and finding opportunities. Do you have any advice?
Well, yeah. I mean, you don't have to be, you don't have to be, you don't have to have your equity card to go on equity.org. You can go look at a bunch of listings. You can go on backstage.com or playbill.com and look for a bunch of listings as far as auditions are concerned. And now that life is opening back up again, if you are in, Manhattan proper and you want to head to Birdland and you want to head to a 54 Below, you want to head to the Green Room 42, networking opportunities are still there, alive and well. And now that social media is even more of a thing than it was before, I mean, you can hit somebody's DMs, somebody who actually runs a show somewhere, especially at 54 Below, and say, I just want to put my name in the hat and show up. You just have to show up. I know it sounds crazy to say that, but you just have to show up.
No, showing up is a big thing. Okay. From Carter Johnson, you inspire and make so many people so happy. Whom do you look up to as a young artist, and who still inspires you?
Wow.
And who would you like to work with?
Well, I am a huge, so if I go back in my life and I think of the singing artists who I'm obsessed with, it started sort of in the world of Sarah Vaughan, and then it became, I became very obsessed with, it sounds crazy because Sarah Vaughan's very jazzy, but I think she also has always had this classical edge about her voice, which then I got really into the opera world of things, and I learned how to sing classically. That was how I was trained, was classically. So that was a huge thing for me. And through the classical stuff, then this is a swerve. I was really into Celine Dion because I was like, ooh, girl knows how to sing and place a note. So I would sit in my room. There were two people.
Dion is fabulous.
Oh my God. What now? Oh, look at me clutching my pearls. If I could work with Celine, if we could have a moment in Vegas, God bless us, everyone. And I began my lifetime sitting in my room singing karaoke, but most of all trying to sound like Rebecca Luker, who was my idol for most of my career. And when we had the chance to work together on my first off-Broadway show that I had ever done, and became very close. And so that was a huge loss for our entire community. But I still, I always think of Rebecca, and whenever I can sort of pay homage to just what an incredible artist and singer, and talk about
and person.
Oh my God. And person first and foremost, again, huge women's rights advocate. But and Bette Midler, she scares the crap out of me. But what a boss.
You're my kind of girl. Question from MK Kelly. How do you sing for good without crying? Does it get easier the more you do it? I don't know. You want to do it now with me and we'll see?
I've heard it said. Yeah. I when you do it a couple thousand times, you sort of can compartmentalize. And I was just telling someone today that when you're doing the run, you're in a specific scene, and Glinda starts off, and she sings a verse and a chorus, and there's a thing behind you that's lit, on fire to look like, ooh, we're in a dungeon. And I remember one time, actually a couple times on the Broadway stage where the thing went off, out, somebody blew it out. And I was like, I smell smoke. And in my head, I was like, well, I'm having a stroke. This is it. This is it. I mean, truly, as she's singing, so if you're thinking, she was like, that people come into our lives for a reason. Oh my God, I'm having a stroke. This is when it all happens. I'm done. I'm going to pass out. It's a stroke. And then you realize that you have to come in. And that it's just the smell of smoke. It's not actually burnt toast. So it was, it's such a good song though. And when you end my last show, forget it. I was done. Sobbed my eyes out.
Well, you played the role for so long. You went from Marissa, in Fiddler on the Roof with Danny Burston, right?
Yes. I mean, I finished Fiddler. My last show was on a Sunday, and I flew out to the tour that Monday to start rehearsals for Wicked. So it was kind of I didn't get a break, which was good, but also pretty exhausting from that Broadway show straight to the national tour. And but Fiddler with Danny, and for the amount of times I got to play Golda opposite of him during the run, was probably one of the coolest acting exercises that I've ever had.
So you got to cover Jessica.
I did, yeah. Another ethereal human.
Unbelievable.
Yeah.
I got another question from
Wait, say
Big
that again.
Dog.
Oh,
I'm sorry. Go ahead. Did you have something?
Yeah. How much prep time did you have to go from that one show to the next?
4 weeks. 4
Wow.
weeks of rehearsal. Yeah. And you have to watch Wicked when you know, I had come sort of like I'd never been in the show before. So you go to the city that you're starting rehearsals and you sit and watch the show. And I remember watching Elphaba for almost 3 hours. And by the end, I was like, what am I doing? Why did I said,
exactly.
Yes. Who? So yeah, it was like, oh, but somehow I did it.
That's amazing.
I have another question from Big Dog. Can you talk about Marissa Rosen and what she means to you? I love the two of you together.
Oh, Marissa is my best friend. That is correct. And she is also one of my background singers. And for all the concerts that I do, yes, she will be at Carnegie Hall. Yes, she is a unicorn. And she is also one of the smartest people I know and one of the most talented vocalists that I know. And you know, she has been working her tail off, and she always reminds me though, and this is something that I should say about like people who are your best friends, and I don't know if the two of you can relate, but she always tries to remind me to be proud of myself, because I'm very hard on myself. So we rehearsed yesterday for the show for Carnegie Hall, and we were there for 3 hours. And naturally afterwards, I was like, so I said, do you think it's good? Is it good? And I don't know if it's good. And she was like, can you just take a moment and try to be proud of yourself? Just try for a moment. So she's a super help in that way. Thank you, Marissa.
Yeah. Joy is that for me.
That's why I spoke to her. We said, I don't know if you two can relate. I'm like, what's that for each other?
Really?
Yeah, we're for each other. Yeah,
for a very long time.
Yeah,
it's so nice to have that when you know that somebody's
we got our
corner.
masters together. So it's I'd love to talk a little bit about Elphaba. And a couple of years ago, I interviewed a young man who Gideon Glick, who talked about the parts that he played, and he's always playing the others. The others, OTHERS. That's what he's cast in, and that's what he plays well. And he took that word "others" from Truman Capote. And you have a quote here that I took from you, and says, "It's hard to be the different one. I'm the only girl on stage who's got this green color all over me. I'm ridiculed on stage from the beginning until the end. To hear things like freak and get out of here, go crawl inside your hole, or we don't want you here is really hard to hear every night." I mean, you are not that, but to render that every night must have been really tough to take.
Yeah, a lot of people ask sort of the question of, okay, you did Wicked all of these years into the run. Sort of how do you relate to the role, or what did you find that you connected to that's different? And when that happened on stage, all I could think about, and you know that these people are acting. However, it still sticks with you. It's not like your psyche completely knows the difference. You sort of you take those sort of hits, and even though you know they're fake and it's acting, there's still something that will stay with me, I think, for the rest of my life. And that is, I was green on stage, right? I don't know what it's like to be a different color. I don't know. I've always seen myself represented in movies, in shows, in theater, in concerts, in people I look up to. And when I played this role, and most of the othering was always based on, she's green. Look at the color of her skin. Wow. that became a huge point of contention of me wanting to make sure that people knew that was that I didn't know what that felt like personally, but I'm sure a lot of people did. And people who came to see the show could say, God, I know what that feels like. And I think it's why a lot of people say, we would love to see an Elphaba of color again. We would love to see an Elphaba represented, because there are a lot of young kids who are Black, who are Latin, who are, who feel like they can relate to the fact that there's this person on stage who has a different color skin. And that was a huge thing for me. And then also for the LGBTQIA plus community, because that was another, group of people who feel severely othered. And, I don't take it lightly. I find a lot of responsibility in being somebody who could tell that story of feeling empowered by their otherness, if that even feels understandable for people listening who have felt othered in the past.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Because there's something when you stand in your power of feeling different, or when somebody finally tells you, and even if it's because you're sitting in the audience and you happen to come to the show on a night where I was doing a certain version of Defying Gravity that made you feel like you could finally stand up for yourself, or have a conversation with somebody that was difficult, or step into your power and feel like you could be who you are. That's the complete reason I did that show. Any accolades of like getting to sing and getting people to hear you, or being, known as Elphaba, or getting to do all of these cool events, or the 15th anniversary is amazing. But feeling like you change somebody's life because they feel like they can be who they are now, it's like I could tear up thinking about it, because in a small way, I know how that feels, especially when you're a kid. But for the amount of adults that feel that way too, I had no idea. And you wind up, especially on tour, meeting a lot of these people who come out at the stage door 20 years old to 80 years old, saying, God, I finally got through this cathartic experience and I was able to come out to my parents, or I could have this tough conversation with this person about how I've been feeling othered by them, or how they haven't been standing up for me or what I believe in. And it's to be able to do that. There's such power in that. And and I've never wanted to feel like I've abused it.
Yeah. You as a performer, the body doesn't know the difference between real and imagined trauma. So when you go on that journey every week, 8 times a week, and you're experiencing this trauma that you're living through, did you do any kind of work to help you de-roll, to help you let it go? Or when you were done with the role, what did you do to take care of yourself?
That's the best question ever, because I did a lot of therapy. I'm still devoted to therapy and acupuncture once a week. That saved me, and especially meditation, especially before bed. And having a dog, that in itself, I have to say, kind of saved me, especially when I was on tour, because you can tend to take work home with you. And especially that role where afterwards, I lived nun life. It was like, that is such a difficult role that you kind of have to, I didn't go out. I didn't do anything. I was quiet as a mouse. But coming home, you can tend to think, oh, well, how did that go? What did I do wrong? Did somebody say this one thing? Why do I feel sad? I have a dog who's like, hey, can you feed me? So that helped me so much. And then also, I think sometimes it still is stigmatized for some reason, needing therapy, especially after, having done a show like Wicked for 2 years, which is not only difficult on the body, but it's difficult on the mind. And like you just said, like I never would have, said to myself, gosh, the body can't recognize the difference. But looking back to the end of my run, my body was, I was done. I was done. There's a reason, like, there's a reason by the time we get to the finish line, our body is like, it's like you are done by the time you play that last show. And it does take, in my opinion, a lot of therapy just to make sure that you're emotionally okay, because you're leaving something that you've done for a really long time. There's like a mourning of that. And there's, the fact that you need to be able to move on to the next thing. And I think that takes a lot out of you.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I like what Joyce said. We went to grad school. We learned, living and doing under imaginary circumstances, and your body doesn't know the difference. So people screaming at you all night and calling you these names can be hard, not only on your body but on your mind every night.
Yeah, I think sometimes it triggers you too, like to when you were a kid. I got bullied a ton when I was a kid. So there are these moments of like, oh my God, I'm taken back to 7th grade.
Yeah,
I'm taken back to this like moment where I was so embarrassed by something. And you're right. It's so, thank you, Joy, for saying that, because I never would have even thought that to myself, like that the body can't recognize the difference, because it makes all the sense in the world. But at the time you're like, no, I'm okay. I'm okay. No,
Mm-hmm.
I was not okay.
You have a big fan following, obviously. It means a lot to you to meet your fans after the show.
Yes.
And if you go on YouTube, you can see Jessica come out the stage door, whether by herself or with a co-star, but she is signing autographs and she is taking pictures and she is thanking her guests for coming to the show. It means a lot to you, doesn't it?
Beyond. I mean, even I would not be here without people supporting me, and without people coming to see me, and without people, steadfastly saying, we're here for you, or we're following what it is that you're doing. And, I'm no stranger to pivoting and to, what it feels like to not do what you love, or feeling stuck. And I think more people than not can relate to what that feels like. And I think that when I get to meet people, and they, like I said, when they come to a stage door, you never know what you're going to hear from somebody, or, what they've gone through, or how they feel changed by what it is that they just saw. And that's happened for me since like I got to do community theater in high school, of people coming and saying, I just lost somebody and this made me forget about it for 3 hours. It's like, that in itself to me is the addictive quality of what it's like to feel like you're responsible for helping someone. And I always like to do this thing traditionally for my last show that I play, to give to give my fans a gift. So on tour, I had little broomstick pens made, and I like painted them green and handed them out at the stage door. Like my Broadway run, I had bracelets made with like the final date, and like,
Oh, that's so nice.
And I'm doing the same thing for Carnegie Hall, though I'm not telling people what it is yet. But it's I don't know. I think oftentimes maybe we can lose sight of the fact that we're not the only ones responsible for our success, and that to remember that other people who are buoying you along the way, the way, whether or not you know them or have worked with them, or they're just a fan coming to see the show, at least for me, I feel very strongly that I need to thank everyone for doing that.
But it's also a fine line, because it's tough, because when you have a hard show, where you've had a hard day, or you had a fight with your boyfriend, or your dog's not feeling well, or whatever, and then
I've gone through it all.
That's waiting is getting mad, and then writing it out on social media. So
it's hard.
There's a real fine line. Yeah,
It's
really
have
hard
to dig into your bag of gratitude.
Yeah, you do. I mean, of course, like it's so much easier said sometimes than done. Like, there were so many times during the 15th anniversary when we were doing so much press around the clock, that by the time, you did a 10 a.m. press thing, and then you had 2 shows, and then you had one more interview, that you're like, y'all, thank you so much, but I can't even talk. I
roll
can't
your
talk.
boat.
And
Right.
luckily, you know, a lot of people are really understanding. And so to anyone out there that I missed at the stage door, thank you, because I promise you, we really do our best to make sure that everyone's taken care of, and you do still have to take care of yourself too, to make sure that you can show up and do the show. And so, you know, even with, and you know, I lovingly call it the Coco Roro with the COVID. Now that we're approaching, you know, Broadway being open again and being able to do concerts and things like that, I'm kind of, you know, hoping for a safely masked gift giving experience again at a stage door. I'm so psyched.
Well, let's talk about it. Tell us more about your show, the date of it.
My show at Carnegie Hall is next Monday, November 8th at 8 p.m. It's my solo concert debut at Carnegie Hall in the big hall, Stern Auditorium. And the show is called My Golden Age. And it's sort of a double entendre, I think, because we can all have a different idea of what the golden age of Broadway or classical music or theater is. And I kind of wanted to turn it on its head a little bit and talk about what my golden age of growing up and listening to and all of the people I wanted to honor. And those people, you know, are the Barbara Streisands and the Linda Ronstadts and the Sarah Vaughns and the Maria Callas and the, you know, those who have made their Carnegie Hall debut before myself, but also these like brassy, unapologetic women who, you know, took no prisoners when they decided to, you know, become who they are. And along with incredible composers who I've had the chance to work with, and guests like Kristen Chenoweth and my friend Scott Hoying from Pentatonics and my friend Sarah Mearns from the New York City Ballet. I pinch myself that it's happening. I mean that in the nicest of ways. Like I just pinch my cheeks because I just can't believe I get to do this thing, and that they kept it on the docket, even though the pandemic happened, and we're still doing it, and we're almost sold out. And how? I'm so grateful. I'm at that point where I'm a week out, and I don't know. Can the two of you also relate to this? Like, before you do something so huge in your life, whatever that milestone might be, it's like you could cry at any moment.
Yes, absolutely. Very, very emotional all the time. Yeah.
That's like,
even if someone looks at me cross-eyed, I'll just break down.
Well, it's transformational. You're going through a transformation. So you're releasing so much of the old to welcome in so much
maybe
of the new.
Yeah, that's what I've been, even today, I'm like, I could cry at any moment, but all for good stuff.
Yeah.
But it's,
That's
you know, it's
good.
like, ooh, it's really beautiful thing. It's really cool. I'm so
I want to
happy.
be there so badly. We have Judith Light next Monday night.
Who I love.
And so I'm trying to figure out a way that I could be like across the street, a friend's apartment, and do Judith and then run.
Oh man,
run fast.
I mean, look, all I'll say is it's a really fun show. It's a really fun show. I'm like, I am over the moon at what we've been able to accomplish. And Warren Carlyle, who's the director of the show, is just amazing. And Mary Mitchell Campbell, for those of you who have worked with her or know her, we have a 13-piece orchestra, and she's just, you know, doing the most incredible stuff. And I'm such a grateful human being for everybody who's helping me with this.
Well, you guys go to Carnegie Hall. Go to Carnegie Hall, get tickets. It's almost sold out. Thank you, Jessica Vosk. You before I met you, I was an enormous fan, and now I'm terribly, terribly in love with you. So we didn't get to talk about Frumacera, but we will. That is our show. Next Monday, November 8th, John Andrew and I will interview the luminescent Judith Light. I have wanted to do this interview for so long. Miss Light is currently in production of Julia, a new HBO series on Julia Child. We will talk about her amazing theater career as well as her long advocacy for LGBTQ rights. Then the following Monday, November 15th, Joy and I will interview the brilliant Tova Felcha. In addition to all her honors, Tony and Emmy nominations, Lucille Lortel, Helen Hayes, Drama Desk, Outer Critic, and other awards and honorary doctorates, we will talk about her support of Hand in Hand, whose mission is to build partnerships and equality between the Jewish and Arab citizens of Israel through a growing network of integrated Jewish Arab schools and communities around the country. More information about these guests and future guests and how to attend one of our recordings online can be found on our website, live@thelordel.com. Thank you for joining us, audience. Remember, get vaccinated, wear a mask, and be safe. We hope to see you in the theater soon. Good night. Thank you, Jessica Vosk. You are an angel. Thank you, Joy. I love you. We'll see you soon. Good night, everybody.
Good night.